Hi, it's Kim from Chatterbox Quilts, and today I want to show you how to add a flange to your quilt. Now, I've done a video on this before, check up above or in the description below, but I've had a lot of questions from people about what to do with the corners. So I wanted to go through it with you in a little more detail so you can understand the entire process. So I've got a block in front of me. We're pretending this is a quilt, okay? And the first thing I want to figure out is how wide do I want my flange to be? Now, if you don't know what a flange is a folded piece of fabric that goes on the quilt. It does not add any width or length to your quilt or anything like that, but it gives this kind of fun little 3D element that is before or even between borders on your quilt, all right? So in this particular case, I decide I want to have a flange that is just a 1/2 inch, all right? So what is the math? Yes, we're going to have to do some quilt math on this. So what's the math required to figure out what is my cut width when I'm doing a 1/2 inch flange? Well, as I mentioned, the flange is folded in half, all right? So if I want a 1/2 inch flange, first I'm going to multiply it by 2, right? Because it's folded in half. Okay, so that gives me 1 inch. Okay, so far so good. But then I have seam allowances to think about, right? And the seam allowances are on both sides of that fabric too. So the seam allowance, I would add another 1/2 inch. So I've got my inch, add a 1/2 inch. So my cut width for my flange would be 1.5 inches. Okay, luckily I've already done that. Okay, so I have already cut some fabric, 1.5 inches to use for my flanges. And I'm going to use the same fabric on all 4 sides. Don't have to if you don't want to, but we're keeping it simple today. Now, length. What length do I cut? Well, just like doing borders. Kind of think of it like doing borders. I will just cut it the same. I'm adding on the sides first. I will cut it the same length as the sides. In this case, it's a square. Everything's 9.5 inches. So I have cut pieces of fabric 9.5 inches long, and they are 1.5 inches wide. Just take my word for it. And then I fold them in half and press them. All right. So they would go on the sides like this, okay? And I'm going to do the 2 sides first and then do the top and bottom. So I want to actually stitch these down, and when I do that, I want to stitch them down with a less than 1/4 inch seam. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to then be adding borders to it, and of course we add those with a 1/4 inch seam. So I don't want to see the stitching that I've done to keep this down, showing when I put the borders on, like after I put the borders on and press them out. I don't want to see the seam stitching, I should say, that I used to stitch down the flange. So I like to do it a little bit less than 1/4 inch. And to keep things in place, I like to use some of this seam align glue. So I'm just going to put some dots down here. You could pin it if you want. You could use just regular glue stick, like school glue stick. And we'll just put that down there. There we go. Now, I could put some inside as well, because it's flapping around, but I think it's going to be fine just to keep it there. So we'll just do that on both sides, and that's going to keep my flange in place. You want to make sure you're matching up your raw edges, okay? Sometimes it's tempting to put the finished edge on. It doesn't work well that way, okay? So make sure you're matching the raw edge of the flange to the raw edge of your block, okay? And we're going to press that down as well to keep it in place. Okay, if they're not perfectly folded over, don't worry about it. It'll be just fine. If you're off by a little tiny bit, no one will notice. Okay, so I've got these down. So my next step would be to stitch these both down with less than 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to do that, and then I come back here and show you what the next step is. So I've stitched on the side flanges, as you can see here. And now it's time to do the top and bottom, okay? Now, this is where it gets a little confusing for some people because you have added on some fabric, but you haven't added any additional width or length to your quilt, okay? In this case, a quilt block. So you can see we still have 9.5 inches here, all right? So I would just cut 2 more strips, 9.5 inches by 1.5 inches each, right? And then you're going to put these on. Same as what we did with the side, but you're doing the top and the bottom. You're going to put those on. You're going to stitch those on with a less than 1/4 inch seam. And then you're ready to put the borders on. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is what it looks like when I've got all the flanges on. So you can see that the raw edges are on the outside and the folded edges are all on the inside. It's ready for the next step. But before I get to that, I want to ask you, are you a subscriber to my channel? If not, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the Chatterbox Quilts channel and make sure you hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. And guess what? The best part, it's free. Now, once we're at this stage with our project, the next thing to do is to add the borders, right? So because of how we put the flanges on and the nature of a flange, you haven't added any width or length to your block. So we're going to start on the side, as I normally do with my borders, when I'm just putting regular, normal strip of fabric border on. And I would put them on either side, okay? Now these ones, when you put them on, you're going to sew these on with a 1/4 inch seam, your normal 1/4 inch seam, right? You're going to put them right sides together with your block, you're going to stitch them down here, and then we're going to be able to press them open before we add the top and bottom. So let me go to the machine, do that, and show you what the final step is to finish this block with a flange. So now I've got the two side borders on, as you can see. So I'm just going to give them a little bit of a press before I open them up to reveal what it's going to look like. Okay, so I'm just going to open them up here. Press this one out. Okay, and then I will do that same thing with the other one here. I'm going to press it out. And I'm going to repress them again after I put on some of this easy press. Get them nice and flat because we're going through a few layers of fabric here, right? With the folded flange and everything. So let's just press them down nice and flat, see what we've got. And you know we have two more borders to put on, right? The top and bottom. Okay. All right, so let's see what we've got here. All right, this reminds me of like a little shutters on a window almost is what it reminds me of. So we got our flanges in here. Again, you can see how they're in there, right? And then the next thing is to measure, of course, so I know what length I need to cut my borders here, all right? So I like to measure them in a few spots. So yeah, this looks about 12.5 inches here. Yeah, so I just need to cut my remaining two strips, 12.5 inches each, stitch them on here. I'll come back and show you what we got. So here we are. We've got our flanges all on, we've got borders on, and I think it looks pretty good. And as I mentioned, I love the flange. It gives that fun 3D effect. You can put it on baby quilts even because they can't get it off. It's stitched in. So it's kind of something to play with. That's not going to be something dangerous for them if you want to put it on a baby quilt. Now, you might be wondering, I was using that seam-align glue when I was putting my flanges down to keep them in place before I sewed them. If you're not familiar with what seam-align glue is, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video that has everything you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.